Eva Fondasso, Classical and Near Eastern Studies. We're told in a variety of documents, such as the Financing the Future Task Force document released late last fall, that the university must grow new sources of revenue and narrow its mission in order to advance its excellence in an era of declining state funding. In the text of your speech, President Bruininks, you state that it will be necessary to eliminate academic units and programs, and that we must each decide what we are willing to cut. We see money and quantifiable metrics driving decision-making. So the question is, what are to be the criteria for eliminating programs, narrowing the mission, and deciding what the university is going to cut? Are those criteria going to be based on market values, or are they going to be based on intellectual and academic values? Thank you.
The core academic values are posted as a part of the university strategic plan. I can just give you a few.
President Bruininks, this is a good example of the problem right here. The strategic propaganda initiative that you and the provost put forward is basically meaningless in this discussion of where the university is going and what our priorities should be.
They have to do with quality, obviously demand for programs, the centrality and relationship to the university's mission. There is a criteria in that list that deals with cost effectiveness, and efficiency. I think that has to be a part of what we do. If there's no demand for something, I think you have to take that into consideration.
Listen to what you've just said. You've used a bunch of weasel words which could be interpreted by the administration in a lot of different ways. You really haven't answered Professor Van Dassel's questions. You haven't even started to answer.
And within the context of that big idea, we have some heavy lifting to do here at the University of Minnesota. You don't reduce state resources by approximately $200 million in a short period of time and not set priorities and make choices.
Again, just listen to what you've said. We have to make choices and set priorities. Many of us have been saying this for years and have been ignored. The reason why we are in the current financial situation has a lot to do with inappropriate choices made in the past about how the university spends the people's money. One of these false priorities is your ambitious aspiration to be one of the top 3 public universities in the world. This propaganda campaign simply has to stop. A reasonable goal would be to be one of the best schools in the Big Ten. Those of us who have pointed this out in the past have been classified by you as doubters. This is the way you have treated legitimate input.
But those choices the choices we make have to be made together. And that's one of the reasons we've asked every single academic and support unit of the University of Minnesota to address a set of really core questions in relationship to the university's values. And
Bob, this is simply an absurd position. You can't ask the university community individually to make decisions about what's going to be cut. Everyone can rationalize or justify that what they're doing is very important to the university. Do you seriously expect that some parts of the university are going to step forward and say, "Cut off my head"? This just isn't human nature. And frankly, I would be disappointed if my colleagues simply rolled over. I presume they do what they do because they think it's very important.
And are there some areas that we really, truly ought to eliminate? But in an academic environment like the University of Minnesota, very few of these decisions are going to be made from the top. And the goal is to save $10 million so we can put it into our academic.
You demonstrate a disconnection from reality, which is surprising at this late date. We're not trying to save money from Peter so that we can put it in Paul's educational kitty. To imply this is dishonest. We are trying to pare back what we spend so that we can withstand the oncoming cuts. Cuts I'll point out that you will not be around to suffer.
Priorities in our academic investments. But we're asking every single unit of the university to have this deep and long-term conversation about its future, because quite honestly, I don't think there's enough wisdom in one or two offices or in the central administration of the university to really set these priorities.
What you're saying here is something that was said by your predecessor, Mark Yudof. Let me remind you of what he said in his inaugural address. When making decisions, I view shared governance and consultation with constituent groups as only fair because of the enormous stake they have in the university. Without fairness, there is no legitimacy and no buy-in to the institutional vision. To the best of my recollection, no great scientific discoveries, no insightful social science tracts, and no novels have been produced in Morrill Hall. No classes are taught in Morrill Hall. No patients are made well in Morrill Hall. My point is that we must value delegating academic and other decisions to campuses, colleges, schools, departments, and faculties. Administrators can facilitate. They can help the deans to build better English or physics or public health programs, but they cannot actually do the building. Help or get out of the way. The great universities of the world, whether Bologna 900 years ago, Trinity College, Cambridge in the 17th century, or Stanford and Berkeley today, are highly decentralized. Without authority invested where the real work of this university is done, the light of excellence will only grow dimmer.
And to me, that puts some special responsibility on my shoulders and yours, because I think you have to be a part of the solution. That's a point I was trying to make in my remarks that I was unable to give. You know, the one thing that's unique about academic cultures is we have shared governance. We do.
I don't intend to argue with you here about shared governance. Simply put, your claim is false. I give you 3 examples: the attempt to rub out the graduate school, the reorganization of the academic health center and the medical school, and the declaration of financial stringency without following the rules outlined in the tenure code.
Now, people, let me read you from the book. It ain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so. The things that you're liable to read in the Bible, it ain't necessarily so.